Hi, my name's Patrick Lewington, and I just want to give you a little tour around the stonework that I've created in Cluny Gardens over the years. I lived here from 1993 until 2007, so 12 and a half years, and 10 of those years I've been building things in the garden, stone walls and stone carvings. And I love being in Cluny, and I love working with stone, and it was just like such a great joy to be able to create something in the garden. Back in 1996 I had an idea that I wanted to start building some drystone walls in Cluny Garden, and of course you needed permission from the garden team and everyone, the focaliser, and so not knowing what I was going to do, they let me have a go on a little project, and this was it. So in former times this lovely bench just stuck out into the middle of the path and people were tripping over it all the time. So I made this little alcove, and that was, I think, in about January or February 1996. The gardeners liked what I had done, so I then moved on to the next section of the wall going here. So this was the next section of wall that I built. Every winter the soil from the bank would just get washed down onto the path, and it was just like an ongoing issue of like somebody needing to keep the path clear every spring. So I decided to build this retaining wall, and in the beginning I really made a big effort to try and get the stones to fit together as neatly and accurately as possible. And as you'll see later, I got a bit looser in my style. This is the love bench, which I think I did in 1998, and this came about because the groundsman at the golf course across the road came and spoke to me and said, I've got some spare big lumps of sandstone. They had just made a kind of a flower bed at the entrance to the golf course, and he'd seen me working in the garden, and so he offered me 19 pieces of lovely sandstone block, and then I also found a couple of bigger flat bits that had fallen off the wall up at the back of the pavilion. And I just started shaping the back piece, and it sort of seemed to start making itself into a bit of a heart shape, and then that just became the theme for the whole bench. Practically it's not that comfortable because the sandstone soaks up moisture from the soil, so it tends to be a bit cold and damp to sit on. But I got an idea. I wanted to carve some of these blocks, and there was some work going on at Elgin Cathedral. They had a team of stonemasons there, and I thought, well, I can at least talk to them and see where do you get chisels for stone carving. So I went and spoke to the foreman, and just as he gave me the address of the company that supplies them, and just as I was leaving, he took a brand new chisel from his store cupboard and say, here's one to just get you started. So that was just like really made my day, and so I ordered about 10 other ones, and yeah, that was one of my creations. I was pleased with these steps. All this stone comes from the local quarry at New Forest. It's a stone called gneiss or gneiss, and it's very, very hard and also quite brittle. So you can't easily shape it with a hammer or a chisel. It's prone to just shattering. So many times I'd just try and knock a little bit off the corner, and the whole thing would just sort of fall in pieces, which was really upsetting if it was a nice flat stone. And these steps lead up to a little covered bench that was somebody donated in memory of their brother who died.
What was the idea of the patios then?
Yeah. There was just like a rough earth track going up, because there's a little walkway sort of halfway up the bank, but there was no way of accessing it without the risk of just slipping and sliding. Hidden in here are two enormous feet. They're actually modelled on my feet, which also happen to be enormous. Not quite this big, but enormous. And I know when I did these because one was in 2003, just before my sabbatical, and one was 2004, shortly after I got back. And the idea is that they represent like a buried giant lying across Cluny lawn. This piece of stone came from up at the quarry, and it's very rare that when they do a blast you get long narrow bits of stone left, and this piece is about 9 feet long, and I saw it and thought, oh, that would make a perfect standing stone. So I got the guys at the quarry to load it onto Tipsy, which was the flatbed truck that the foundation used to have. It probably weighs about 3/4 of a ton, and so I managed to drive the truck part of the way up the track at the other side of the building, and I pushed it off, and then we got some rollers, and a team of us dragged it along this path, a bit like, you know, the stones in the pyramids, and then I dug a hole and we managed to haul it upright. And then not long after, Franco Santori, who, when he lived here, he was doing this astro-shamanic stuff, and he said this was exactly in the right place for the sign of Taurus on his. He'd done like a map of Cluny where there were the various astrological symbols represented. So that was a bit of fun doing that. There's another little flower carving there. So this is the biggest, highest bit of the walling I did. You're not allowed to make a wall more than 4 feet high without getting sort of engineering approval, just in case it were to collapse on anyone. So there's a lot of stone involved. It's like each metre of this wall used about a ton of stone. Again, there was a bit of manifestation here in that the groundsman at the golf course tipped me off about a building that had been demolished in Cullen, which is about 35 miles away, and so I headed over there with a young LCG and Tipsy, our faithful flatbed truck, and we got about 20 of these great big dressed stones from the demolished building, and this used to be a very dangerous just earth pathway up and down the bank, and so I built these steps, and then a few years later Georgette was running an Essence of the Arts program and got the participants to decorate the step, the flat bit of each step, so it actually makes a serpent design going up the steps. Every bit was done by a different student, and so they're all using different bits of mosaic and pebbles, and it just sort of added a bit of extra beauty to the thing. There's some really big lumps of stone, which I wonder how I managed to move them sometimes. But I did spend a lot of money at the chiropractor over the years. So this was my first stone carving, and I hadn't figured out that actually you need to cut away a lot of stone from around the edge in order for the face to be prominent, and so it doesn't quite work as well as I'd hoped. But then I did this other one. So we've got moon and stars, and this is, I think, the favourite carving I've done in the garden. There's this beautiful fish. I can't claim credit for this. How this came about was I'd carved the rough outline of a fish, and it was just waiting for some further work to happen, and I got to hear about a Japanese stone sculptor who was visiting the community, and he was asking whether if he could do any stone carving. So I lent him some chisels and just said, yes, if you'd like to decorate this, please go ahead. So he spent about a week chiseling away 8 or 9 hours a day. This used to be like a really steep slope. It was covered in these yellow hypericum flowers, but they were all getting very just very weak, and something needed to happen here. So the gardeners cleared all the hypericum and just left bare earth for me to work with, and so I did this sort of double terrace to try and create a better area for planting. It wasn't a job, it was just, I would say I was almost addicted to, once I got started I couldn't stop. This is the bird bath that my Japanese friend did the lovely flower design all the way around. Just very painstaking work with a very small chisel. Originally there was a path along here just made of stepping stones with grass in between, but it was just like a real pain to keep the grass cut and looking neat. So we decided to turn it into a mosaic area, and so I got some bits of polished stone and bits of quartz from a visit to Brazil, and I got some of the pieces of pottery Derek Simpson made, and then I made I made some of the ones over here, and Bailey kindly fired them for me in the pottery kiln. This was my gift of love to Cluny. I lived here altogether 12 and a half years, and I really loved being here, and I loved working with the stone and loved having a chance to create something in